Hey guys, Mark with the Dog Trainer here. Today we're going to be doing a quick review of the Dogtra Smart NoBark Collar. Now, full disclosure, I don't use a lot of bark collars in my training technique. I tend to use more of Dogtra's remote-based e-collars, and that's mainly because there's a lot of work that goes into introducing this type of equipment to our dogs. We want to make sure that we're being fair to them. We want to make sure they understand what we're asking of them, and we want to maximize the results that we're looking for. So having said that, I do think there is a time and a place for this type of collar. I just think it's very important you know what you're doing before you put it on your dog. So I would highly recommend that you're looking into a professional trainer to help you through the process of introducing this. Because in my mind, I would imagine we would probably want to start by getting our obedience itself straightened out. And then we would add this in as kind of a secondary tool depending on what we're looking to accomplish. Now, everything we're going to talk about in this video comes from my personal training experience, but there are a lot of different trainers out there, a lot of different techniques and approaches. So there may be other applications that I'm not thinking about. So as always, just make sure you're really doing your research before you start getting into this kind of stuff. Now, this bark collar in particular has some pretty cool capabilities that I was not expecting that may actually help us branch into things that are even outside of barking. So in this video, we're going to take a closer look at the e-collar itself so I can show you all the different features and functions and settings that it has. And then we're going to take a look at the app that it comes with because the app gives us some pretty cool data and information that can be helpful for some different training applications. So as we go through the app, I'm going to kind of explain different scenarios I could see this collar being helpful for. Okay, and we'll probably wrap up the video from there. So why don't we take a closer look? All right, guys, so here we are with the Dogtra Smart NoBark Collar right out of the box. Now, I should probably start by pointing out what they mean by smart is that this bark collar has an advanced ability to recognize the differences in the sounds that it's picking up. So it can recognize howling, whining, barking, and it's also a lot better at picking up ambient noises in the background where, like, obviously we don't want some sound that's, happening in our house to be registered as a bark because it obviously wouldn't be fair for our dog to get corrected if they're not making any noise. So that's what they mean by smart. Now, as far as like strength goes, this is labeled as medium output. So I would imagine that this collar is probably comparable to like the 200, the 280, the 280X, probably something in that ballpark as far as strength. Now, this collar comes with a charging cable, but it doesn't actually come with the adapter itself. Now, if you follow my advice in starting with obedience first, a lot of the newer Dogtra models of e-collars, like their typical remote-based e-collars, come with the charging adapter that fits this one as well. So it is compatible. I recently did a video on the 280X, and I was just using that charger to charge this. Okay. Now, as far as the collar itself goes, we've got our typical contact points that we could replace with longer or shorter if we needed to. In the box, it also comes with some rubber plugs. So if you're not going to use the actual correction feature, you could take these off and just put in the little rubber stoppers. Now, the charging port on the back is just the USB-C cable. And again, if we plug that back in, that's what's going to keep it completely waterproof. Okay, now as far as the buttons go, we've got an on-off button and we've got a selection button. And in the middle, that's our microphone to pick up all the sounds and things like that. Now, if we turn this on, okay, we're going to see a few different things here. So we've got our battery life. We've got the setting that it's on. Right now it's on count only. And then we've got the counter. Now, like I said before, we can actually go into the app and specify what we want to count on here. So you could do just barking, so it's only counting when it hears barking. You could set it for barking and whining and howling, and it will count every time it hears howling, every time it hears whining. So you can specify that in the app. Okay, now let's say it's on count only. Okay, that means that it is not giving any type of correction. It's just counting how many barks and howls and things like that that it hears. And again, all of this is being transferred to the app in real time. Now, if we wanted to switch that setting, we're just going to hold the selection button until the arrows show up. And now we can use the on button or the selection button to move back and forth. Now, let's say we're going to go to the pager setting. If you just wait a couple seconds, it's going to lock in that setting. Okay, so now that it's on pager, that means that every time it registers a bark or a howl, it's going to vibrate. Okay, now let's say we wanted to switch that. Now we're going to switch it to auto increase. And this is actually pretty cool that within 30 seconds, every time the dog barks, it's going to go up incrementally in intensity. And I think after 30 seconds, it kind of resets back to the base level. And then after that, we can just set it to like whatever level we want, that it'll just give this level correction every time the dog barks. Okay, I think it goes up to 10. Now we're going to set it back to count only. Okay, and I should probably also point out on the pager setting that this has an upgraded vibrate setting that's a little bit more intense than some of the other models available. Okay, now that I think is everything you need to know about the collar itself. So why don't we take a closer look at the app so I can show you some of the cool features that has. All right, so here we are on the home screen. I've got Cosmo's name up top. That's synced up to the collar that I have. If I wanted, I think I could actually add 2 other collars to this app, and I could give each of them a different name so I could measure the barking for all of my dogs, or at least 3 of them. Within the last 25 minutes or so, it's only registered 1 sound as a whine and howl. It's set to level 1, meaning that every time it senses something, it's going to give a correction at level 1. We've got at the bottom our adjustment and mode selection. Okay, if we click on adjustment here, it's going to bring us to our sensor sensitivity adjustment. So here, it's got our ongoing counters. We can turn on or off the bark and the whine and howl. So now it's only counting whining and howling. Or we could switch it the other way, that it's only counting barking now. Or we could do both. You can, edit some of the stimulation settings to correct at a lower level of volume. Down at the bottom, we can adjust vibration motion sensitivity or volume sound sensitivity. If you feel like for whatever reason the collar's not picking up your dog's barking, or the opposite, that we feel like it's picking up more than it's supposed to. Now, if we go to mode selection, that's going to bring us to like all the things I already showed you guys on the collar itself. So we can go to our count only setting, pager, the auto increase, and then again in auto increase here, we can actually adjust what we want the minimum and maximum levels to be when it's automatically increasing. And I think in most cases, I'd probably start here and adjust it as needed. And then again, we can also set the level that, let's say I've got it at 5. That means it's going to give a correction at 5 every time that it's registering a bark. All right, now moving to the next page. This is the e-collar training page. And this is really pretty cool. This is basically just like an e-collar remote. Now, you might be a little limited because it only connects up to 30 yards from the collar. But this can actually be really helpful for what I was talking about earlier, is that I would probably plan to start with obedience and teaching my dog manners and things like that before I just use a bark collar. So this is really cool to give you that capability to teach a quiet command or anything else that you might use a typical e-collar for. But we've got Nick, we've got a continuous setting if we wanted. You can see it up top under training mode, or we can do just our regular pager. And again, we can adjust the level 1 to 100, and we can lock the stimulation level as well. Now, moving to the next page, this is probably one of the coolest features that this thing has, which is the bark meter. And this measures how much whining and barking, how much howling, the intensity, what time frames it's happening in. And this really opens up some really cool doorways for me. I actually think in my mind, this would be really helpful for separation anxiety. That there's a lot of times I'm working with clients and I'm trying to figure out how long their dog is barking after they leave the house. And I've actually just been using like a camera or recommending that they buy a camera or a baby monitor or something like that. And we're always waiting to see, do they stop barking after 10 minutes? Are they barking the entire time that we're gone? And without some kind of recording device, this can be difficult because it's hard to say if you just showed up, let's say the dog heard the garage door open, maybe they were quiet for a few hours, but when they heard the garage door open, they started barking, and that can make it hard to tell if your dog was barking all day or if they just started barking when they heard that you came home. So this is a really cool way to give capability to see, okay, well, my dog was quiet almost all day, and they just started barking when I came home. This is also really helpful to find patterns of like, okay, let's say our dog is quiet almost all day, but every single day around 3 o'clock, our dog starts barking like crazy. Well, that's a pretty good indication that there's something happening around 3 o'clock that is getting your dog worked up. Maybe someone walks their dog past your house every day at 3 o'clock. Maybe the Amazon guy is dropping off packages around 3 o'clock every day. So that can kind of help you find some patterns that might be going on that you weren't expecting. So that's why I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. And again, you can look up top and see, you can look at the week and the month and the year, and you can also measure over time, if your dog's barking is getting better, if it's improving. Now, as we move to the last page, that's going to be the settings page. We've got some tutorials on how to use the different, features of this collar. We've got notifications, and some of these are pretty helpful. Like it will tell you if it thinks the collar is too loose, like it's not registering the barking effectively. It's going to tell you if it thinks the stimulation level is too weak. Again, if the barking's not getting better, the level might need to come up a bit. If you're using the auto increase feature, it will tell you like, hey, we think that the strongest level in the auto increase needs to be a little bit higher. And then it will also tell you if it thinks that you need a different stimulation mode. Like, okay, hey, the pager setting really isn't making the barking better. Maybe we need to switch to the auto increase mode, or at least consider switching the mode. And then my favorite notification on here is that it tells you that your dog's been wearing your collar for a little while. And this doesn't happen often, but every once in a while I'll have a client that leaves their collar on for like way too long, like a couple days. So I like that this gives you the notification that it's time to take it off. So I think that is everything you guys need to know if you are looking into the Dogtra Smart NoBark Collar. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.